Hello, welcome back to our Heritage Works. Today I'm going to do some cast iron restoration. The pieces that I have to restore are pieces that were either given to me or that I found like at garage sales or a thrift store, whatever I could do to find them. I'm still on the lookout for pieces to add to the collection, but as you can see, some of these pieces are pretty gunked up. You can see by the heat ring on the right that the seasoning and stuff has been baked on and caked on. This is all stuff that we need to take care of. This piece is probably the worst one that I have. The bottom of it you can see is covered in rust. On the front side there's a little bit of rust, but there's also all kinds of grooves that have things caked on and baked on and just ooey and gooey in there, and all needs to be cleared. This one is not too bad. It's got a little bit of rust on the inside. Basically, I could probably use this one, but I'd rather not until I get it cleaned up. And on this next one, we have, it's probably the best one that I've got, and I could use this one. I know where it came from. The only thing this one really needs is a good cleaning and getting some of the extra seasoning off of it. The first thing I need to do is a dry fit to see if all the pans will fit in the tote that I have. To clean these pans, what we're going to do is soak them in lye, and be careful with this stuff. It is toxic. You don't want to get it on you. And all you have to do is put 5 gallons of water in a bucket and then add the entire container of the lye. And as you can see, it goes right in. I'm doing this outside because it does have some fumes and stuff that you don't want to breathe. You can see it dispersing in the water, and that's exactly what we want. All we have to do is soak these different pans and skillets in the lye. It's recommended 2 to 3 days, check it, 2 or 3 more days, check it. I'm using this first pan to kind of stir the lye up to make sure it's ready. Now I'm just going to place all the others in there so that it can soak. Again, some people say 2 to 3 days is all you need. I believe I soaked them for 4 days. I have heard of people forgetting about them and soaking them for a year. It does not hurt the pans to over soak them. So if you're going to air, soak them too long. If you look at the water, you can see that it is already starting to turn brown. It's getting all nasty. The heat helps, and I put a cover on this and left it outside. I didn't want anything to get into it. Once I was done soaking, I brought them in and rinsed them off. By rinsing them off with water, that gets all the lye off. The more water you use, the more lye that comes off. So it's not a problem with that. But it did a really good job of getting it down to bare metal. All I had to do was some light scrubbing on each piece to get the final gunk off and get it all rinsed off. As you can see, I'm not using a lot of water. It's just a matter of scrubbing it really good to get the harder stuck pieces off. So I'm going to keep scrubbing this until I've again got everything off, and then definitely down to clear bare metal. That is the most important thing, is we want everything off. All the old seasoning, any cooked on, baked on stuff, that all has to come off, and we want this as clean as possible. As a note, when it comes time to season, all you're going to use is water and the different scrub brush and the metal scruffy that I have in there. That's all you need to do when it comes time to season them later, when you after you've used them and you want to clean them. You're just going to repeat this part of the process of hot water, scruffy, scrub brush, and wash them and dry them really good. There are many different ways you can get all the old seasoning off and get it back down to bare metal. I've seen people throw them into a fireplace with a nice raging fire, or a log stove. I've seen people use their grill and crank it up as high as possible. Others have used the self-cleaning feature of their oven. I chose not to do any of these for several reasons. The oven, I don't like the self-cleaning, I don't like the smoke, etc. in the house. It just bothers me. The other methods all require high heat, and basically you're burning everything off. In order to get it that high, you have to then worry about warping or cracking the metal. So I chose the lye method so that way I could control not overheating and doing damage to the pans. The soaking doesn't hurt them no matter how long I do it, so I decided to go that route. As soon as I was done washing each pan, I did dry it immediately as best I could. I got every drop that I could get off of it. This is important so that way you don't have any flash rusting that comes up. If you have a little bit of flash rusting, it'll come off in the seasoning, but you really want to try to avoid it. So that's what I did. And then I moved on to the next pan and scrubbed it. If I found anything that needed more, I would go ahead and then make that decision. So I would double check the piece, inspect it after it's dry, and you can see exactly what still needs to be done to it, if anything. If it's good, set it aside, go on to the next one. If it's bad, it may need to go back out in the lye or have something else done to it. I repeated the cleaning process for each of the pans. I scrubbed it really good, got all the gunk off. As you can see, this one, it really needed cleaned off, but the lye had loosened everything up, so it was ready to go. If you come up to rust, the lye will not clean the rust. So what you have to do is use 50% water, 50% vinegar, and you spray it on and then scrub that off, and that will take care of the rusting. The problem with it is if you leave it on, it will pit. So if you leave anything acidic in your cast iron, you will need to really take care of it. As you saw, I used a little bit of Dawn soap on that last piece, just because it had so much gunk on it that was loosened up that I just wanted to make sure I got it all off. And Dawn at this stage will not hurt it because we're going to rinse it all off and season it and protect it later. The spray bottle you see is the vinegar and water that I used. I just made sure that when I was done, I really rinsed it off really well. That the water will disperse all of the vinegar and take care of it. I scrubbed all of these. The lye did a really good job getting everything loosened up. Anything that was really tough, I used the Dawn soap and then cleaned it up, dried them, and set them aside and moved on to the next piece. It didn't take me very long at all. A couple of pieces after I let them dry, I went back to them because I found a spot or two. But that's something you need to do, is just double check to see how everything turned out. Once everything was washed and ready to go, dried and everything, I put them in the oven at 250 degrees and I left them there for 30 minutes. Now, it was a little tough stacking everything in there, but I did the best I could. This heated the metal all the way through. After the metal was heated all the way through, I did the initial seasoning. Now, as you can see, the metal, all that seasoning is gone, and I'm using lard. It's what I had. You can use coconut oil, you can use flaxseed oil, grapeseed oil. You want something with a high smoke point. The higher the better, for the most part. But as you apply this seasoning, it's amazing to watch the pan come alive. So you rub it out, your fat of choice on it. You get every surface that you can, the handle, the bottom, the top, all the way around. And I'm using a paper towel for a couple of reasons. One is it will help protect me from the heat, but two, it will also pick up any of the excess dirt, and I'm not dirtying up extra towels that then have to be washed. It is just simply a cleanliness thing. But apply a generous amount. The pan, because it's hot, is going to open up its pores and absorb all that oil that it can handle. So be careful, it is hot. Notice I have a hot pad on my hand when I flipped it over. Do both sides. Make sure that you are thoroughly getting all of the nooks and crannies and crevices, every little piece, every little part of each skillet needs to be done. And it's amazing because you can actually see exactly where you've gotten and where you haven't. I can see at the moment I've missed part of the handle. I should go back and hit just the little end of the handle, and there I did it. So you can see the difference in the color on the skillet. Now, as soon as you're done, what you're going to want to do is go back to the first side and wipe down with a clean towel and try to get all of the seasoning off that you can. You don't want to leave anything left. What you're trying to get is a very, very, very thin layer of seasoning on your pan. The excess is what will turn to a gummy, sticky mess. So I've gotten a clean paper towel, and I am just sitting here and getting all the excess. Because the pan is hot, it has already absorbed all that it can handle at the moment. So I'm just taking off what's extra. It's not going to hurt the pan. It's already done everything that it needs. And I'm going to do this to both sides. Get everything you can off of it. When you're done, the pan should look and feel dry. So just go over it, and you can see the difference in the sheen as you go over it. You'll know when it looks and feels dry. And again, you're going to want to flip it over when you're done. At this point, the pan should be getting cool enough that you can flip it, but you don't want to latch hold of it. And you should be able to start seeing the markings and all that with this very first layer on the skillet. You should see all of the markings that you're going to. It's finally at a point where you can actually see the difference. So I can see there's an E at the top, a 10 on this skillet. I can tell that it's lodged by the heat ring. It has the 3 notches in it. And then I'm going back through with yet another towel just to make sure I've got the last of it. I then put it back in the oven and do the next one. Again, you want to make sure that you've got this as dry as possible, that you've gotten all the excess off. And then you're going to set it back in the oven and pull out the next piece, which is still at that 250 degree mark, so be careful when you pull it out. But you're going to repeat the process. You're going to apply the oil, then you're going to go back through, wipe it off, and try to dry it as much as you can. Then you're going to get the next piece. This one was extra hard because of all the extra grooves. It meant getting down in every single groove and making sure that I got a good coating of the oil or the lard inside of this. So it was a little harder, but just a little time and it went well. And then you do it for the next one and the next one until you have them all done. This is my last pan for the initial seasoning level. So I'm going to put it back in the oven and up my temperature to 350 degrees, and I'm going to put it there for 1 hour. The reason for 350 degrees, I read a lot about this as to what temperature. Some say 400 or 500 degrees, some say 300 degrees. What I found out was you want it to be at least 320 to 325 degrees, because that is when the oil or fat will polymerize. It helps create that skin coating. Then the fat in lard at about 370 degrees, it will start to smoke. So I wanted to keep it below the smoking point but above the polymerization level. And then you pull it back out one by one and you repeat that seasoning that you just did. So this is round 2 that you're seeing of the seasoning. Again, you want an extremely thin coat when you're done. The thicker it is, it's just going to get gummy if there's anything extra. So put it on thin and bake all the pans for another hour. At the end of doing it, the oven again for an hour, you're going to do a third round of seasoning. You're going to put, this is the exact same thing that you just did. You put the fat on, then you let it cool just a little bit, wipe off all the excess, and then you're going to put it back in the oven, grab the next pan, heat it or oil it, wipe it off, put it back in, just like we've been doing. You want to at least 3 coats. I've heard some people say 4. I've heard some people say 6. I've heard some people go as high as 10, but most seem to say 3 coats is what you need to get your pans ready to go, ready to use, and then your day-to-day usage and seasoning will finish things up. Now, the color of the pans are not going to be that deep black that you're used to. They're going to be golden to begin with, and they will get blacker with time. Heat the pans one final time and then let them cool overnight. Now it's time to inspect the pans for any cracks, damage, or anything like that. The heating and the cooling will bring up anything that looks bad. You want to make sure that you've gotten an even coat of seasoning. This one did great. It has a little rust on the bottom. I can also see that it is a Chinese brand. It's a 12-inch. Okay, it's not that bad. Then I noticed the handle. It has a crack, but looking at it closer, and this is part of a defect in the form and not an actual crack. I've used this pan and it's doing fine, but you want to watch for cracks and those type of things for safety reasons. This is a small Lodge number 5 pan. The 5 at the top tells me that it's the size. The 1 probably tells me it's the first shift. It could be the mold number. I know it's a Lodge because of the heat ring that you can't see real well in this picture. But this one's another number 5 Lodge pan, but the 3 little notches in the heat ring tell me that it is a lodge. There's extra numbers above the 5 that I'm not sure what they're there for. I think it might be a mold number or something like that. This one's a number 10 lodge. Again, you can tell the lodge by the 3 notches in the heat ring. And this has an E in it and a little tiny dot after it. That probably tells me that it's first shift, the dot does. This one has pitting. On the back of this one, you can really read it nice and it also has swirl marks, which are probably someone took a grinder to it at some point. All of these are good to use, and I've used them all and they're doing great. So let's see how well our pans have done. This is one of the number 5 lodges pans. I'm heating up the pan with a little bit of olive oil. I've not used a cast iron skillet in a long time, so I decided to do some eggs. As you can see, it is hot. It probably should have been a little hotter to start with, but the eggs are in there, and as you can see, they're going to slide around nicely, just like they were non-stick. And here's the final product, and it was great. After you use them, allow the pan to cool, and then you're going to need to wash them, kind of like I did in the cleaning. You're going to use hot water and then scrub them with the scruffy or a scraper. Then you're going to dry it. Then you're going to put it back on the stove top instead of the oven. Heat it up for a few minutes. I normally do about 2 to 3 minutes. I turn off the heat, add the fat, rub it around, allow it to sit 5 minutes, wipe off the excess, and then allow it to cool completely. That will keep it seasoned. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with others, and put on your social media. Thanks again. Bye.